My final scenario, which is actually my favorite, and it's I want to really kind of lean on your experience of having created an exit in your startup CloudCherry.
Mhm.
So again, making up a founder name. So it's Surbhi. She has been now working very hard on a startup, 5 to 7 years into the journey, has reached reasonable scale, let's say, anywhere from 5 to 20 million ARR, just to kind of throw a number out there on scale. Um, Now, kind of at this stage, there is now an urgency building in terms of, okay, there are now early investors, there are early employees, even the founder herself, there needs to be an exit that needs to happen at some point, right? And you need to start kind of doing some groundwork for it. Startups, as sort of both of us have seen, they're still all consuming. Things are breaking on a daily basis. There's so much of operating work going on a daily basis. Surbhi has not been, in the finance world. It's a first startup. She doesn't know anything about M&A and how to kind of really navigate that world. But now there is an urgency that, okay, I have to start doing in the groundwork, right? In terms of even creating an exit, let's say 24 months down the road. What can Surbhi start doing today very strategically in terms of making sure that, this can happen?
Well, congrats to Surbhi, 5, 7 years. You've come to the best years of your life, 5 to 20 million era. That's already fabulous. But I like the question already because you're talking about M&A 24 months down the line, right? Because I always say, uh, if you need something now, it's like good health, right? Fitness. I want to be fit today. It doesn't work, right? There needs to be a trail of activity and choices that you've consciously made, which aid in that endeavor. So similarly here, at SaaSBoomi, we did this at the Caravan. We do it pretty often at the annual. We're actually starting, I think it's already should be live already, uh, an entire section on M&A, right? We're starting an M&A hotline for people who might find themselves in the midst of a process. But as part of that, we actually did an 8 vectors framework on the essence of it was biz dev that is indistinguishable from corp dev. Now, should a founder spend any time in corp dev activities as they're building? The short answer is no, right? Remember, the best acquisitions happen for companies that are destined for superstardom, going public or whatever, right? So which means if you're building to sell, maybe you're smarter than I am, more power to you, but build for the long term, build a great company, build a great product, build a great culture, build raving, fanatical customers, and the good things will happen, right? But obviously they won't just happen because if you did nothing. So the reason I said biz dev indistinguishable from corp dev is biz dev is the founder's responsibility from day one. And I don't mean biz dev in the traditional sense of the word. So the 8 vector framework that we have at SaaSBoomi, we can go into it in detail at some other session. Essentially is around, do you know your strategic ecosystem? And what do I mean by strategic ecosystem? Strategic ecosystem is anyone who has been, is, or could potentially be in your space, right? The platform players, the hyperscalers, adjacent companies. Why do I say that? Knowing the plot of your strategic ecosystem is critically important because that is the suite of products that your customers are using, right? They could be using a CRM under you, they could be using someone else integrated into you. Why do you say that? Because how do you expand TAM? You do more for the same ICP, right? You take a process, you're doing a piece of the process, you either move vertically up the process, down the process, do what, right? Or you move adjacent to the ICP or the process, right? That's how you grow TAM. Like when this is a 3-hour workshop in itself as to how to expand TAM, right? Everyone is going to be doing that either consciously or subconsciously, which means all of these people could get into your space. Now, when they get into your space, why does M&A happen? Then it goes back to a foundational understanding of M&A. I acquire a company. First of all, people acquire companies. Companies don't acquire companies, right? What I mean by that is it's not system driven. The M&A options don't get spit out of an ERP, right? It's an exec who's thinking about the strategic future of the company or the business unit, says, this is where I need to be, right? And you're desirable for one of many reasons. Number one is if I restarted my company, my 15, 20-year-old company or this business, if I rebuilt it, this is what the future looks like, which means I'm high end of the enterprise. I'm unwieldy. I'm services heavy, hard to deploy, very expensive. You represent the mid-market modern version of it. Over a period of time, I can blend, merge, right? I can become one. That was literally our acquisition of a number one, right? Next is you're a very, very interesting feature or module to my very large platform, right? I could bundle you at $5 users a month. I have 20 million users. Literally, this is incredible. Like it's logical that you're on my platform. This success is evidenced by go-to-market partnership. You're doing very well on the app, store, exchange, whatever, right? It depends. Everyone's got a different name. And I realized, man, my foundational platform could do with this enhancement, correct? And people buy that either a completely new module that is your company or an adjacency, which means I can solve, if I sell to the VP of sales, oh, he could also use this, right? Or she could also leverage this. So it could be an adjacency. It could be, as I said, up the value chain, down the value chain, new module or feature, V2 of your product, all of the above. The reason I asked you the first question first is when you know the strategic ecosystem, you have to understand who are you to each of these constituents. If you know these two, which is if you know the strategic ecosystem, you know who you are to them. The third question is, what are you doing to their business? Are you eating their lunch? You know how many founders say, I'm better than, I keep saying Salesforce for whatever reason, but I have a product that's better than Salesforce. Like, does Mark Benioff know? Maybe not, right? Do the channel partners know? Do the analysts know? Do the customers know? And analysts could know and talk about it even at 1 million ARR. So don't think scale is the reason why people don't, right? So one of the vectors here is third-party validation. What do people who are not you say about you? It could be G2 Crowd, it could be Capterra, it could be an analyst report. You may not be in the MQ because you don't have the scale, but the analyst would be remiss not to mention that this new company doesn't have the scale, but incredible early success. You've spoken to some customers, they say they love it, right? That's enough for you. You don't need to be on the MQ, right? Because MQ has revenue sort of cutoffs and things like that. So all of these are vectors that are relevant to your BizDev map. If you do this BizDev right and work on these vectors, engaging these people, one of the vectors we talk about is the execs love you. So if any of these companies you are strategically engaged, do you have a personal relationship with these execs? Half the time you realize halfway through the M&A, you know what the big companies thinking, especially big tech. It'd be amazing to have this team on board. It's called tech and talent, right? If you think they are, acquiring you at 100 million or 200 million for your distribution, you're dramatically wrong. They have the distribution. They're saying 200 mil for a new product category or, whatever vectors I gave you. And this incredible team, this person can come in and turbocharge our growth. So focus on BizDev, don't focus on CorpDev, do all the things. In retrospect, when you do get acquired, you look back and you'll realize that the ducks lined up in a row because you did conscious BizDev activities over a sustained number of years. That is how M&A happens, right? The last, of course, is M&A happens because some exec somewhere has a hypothesis and they tell the corp dev teams, let's look at all companies in the space. It does happen that way. Then everything from third-party validation to someone knows this company, what are customers saying, all of that make a difference, right? But again, it's in the same BizDev matrix that I spoke about earlier.